laser focus. It's like you gotta have the laser eyes, you know. It's it's almost freezing outside over here. That was expected. It was in the forecast. And you got to remain motivated regardless. Oh no, it's almost 32 degrees Fahrenheit out here. It's super cold. Well, what are you going to do? You know, are you going to stay under the covers, cozy, and just say, you know what? I know here in New York, there's probably going to be a lot more days where it's going to be even colder than this. In fact, as I had mentioned yesterday, the next $10 or so, it's supposed to be really chilly. So we're in November. What about December and January? You know, what are we gonna do? We're gonna be cozy and under the covers every day because you know it's cold? No, we're going to remain focused, stay motivated, and keep those laser eyes on the prize. You know, it's interesting, because when you see the thumbnail and you see that coin, amazing how most people know what that is, you know? Some way or another, most people know what that is. And at this point, if it hasn't happened already, it's probably going to happen soon. We're talking about 1 billion users, you know? There are over 7 billion people on this planet. 1 billion users. 1 billion active users. That's crazy, you know? So it's interesting, like when I first got into the markets, right? I remember, I don't have that much time in 2020, right? You could say 2021. And I used to hear about people that were in the markets like since 2015, 2017, and it was like, if you think about it, right? If we're just talking about the digital markets, right? BTC pretty much went live in 2009, right? If you think about it. Now, Dogecoin is older than Ethereum, Cardano, BNB, XRP, Solana, etc., 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 right? But Dogecoin is an anomaly, right? So if you think about like most of the big caps, they came in after 2015. So at that time, 2020, 2021, when I heard about people coming in at in 2015, it was like, wow, you know, you're an OG. You're like, you got in when like all of this stuff was just starting. It was like brand new. It'd be the equivalent of like LL Cool J getting into hip hop in like the early 1980s. You know, it'd be like, man, he got into the game in like, it was like 84, 85, you know? And hip hop, as far as like to the mainstream, you know, like what is said as far as culturally with like the Bronx, Sedgwick Avenue, and Kool Herc, and you know, the founding forefathers, right? That's like 1975, you could say, right? So LL Cool J, he must have started like around 1980. So that's like right around the beginning. That's like the equivalent when Ethereum came out in 2015. And these people that just got in, like, even though, yeah, I got in 2020, so you could kind of say, like, I'm around there towards the beginning as well, but not really, because Bitcoin came out in 2009. So it's interesting because 4 or 5 years from now, people will look at me and be like, wow, you're an OG, you know? And in a weird way, that's like the theme of this live stream today, because you have to have that laser focus on making sure you become an OG in everything you do. And the only way you can say you're an OG, because you could have like dabbled in something at whatever time, but what are you doing right now? Because there's a difference between someone who's been in something consistently throughout. Like, there weren't any breaks. You weren't a weekend warrior. No, you stayed in it throughout. As opposed to the next person who kind of dabbled, took a long layoff, and then just dabbled a little bit. No, you're not really in it. You know, you're not in it. You don't get OG status. So in order to have that laser focus, you have to remain consistent. You have to stay motivated, and you have to do your best to stay as positive as you can, because life is going to continue to keep throwing and hurling crap and obstacles your way. So you got to be able to, like the market, stomach the volatility of how life goes up and down. And that's a very difficult thing to do. So to remain focused and become an OG, you know, it takes something serious from within. That's why the percentage of people able to actually succeed in some of the most difficult tasks, I guess, or to accomplish some of the most difficult feats, the percentage is very low. You know, we're talking about like less than 5%, probably less than 3%. And one such example would be financial independence. So financial freedom in 2025, if we're talking about liquidity, like liquid assets, we're talking about $1 million+, right? No, we're not talking about assets. We're talking about liquid assets, right? So if we're just talking about assets, period, in 2025 going on to 2026, it's in the millions now, right? Now, something that was interesting that I thought I'd share. So in New York, right, especially New York City, you got to make like $100,000+ a year to be comfortable out here, and like really comfortable. So if you do the math on that, that's like, in order to be wealthy, we're talking about multi-millions, multiple millions. But what's interesting about it, though, is if you take $1 million, right, you could potentially stretch it out and have it last several years. I don't know, maybe 6, 7 years. But if you take that same $1 million and you go elsewhere, and I'm a patriot, so don't think I'm one of those people who's going to be like, well, screw this country. I'm not going to say that. But if you take that same million and you go elsewhere, because every country, like a developing country, they got beautiful places. And even if it's not like top-notch resort, like luxurious spots, they have charming, nice places, right? It doesn't have to be like the hood or the slums, and it doesn't have to be like any type of extreme. But that million will stretch decades. Over here, you could stretch it for like 6, 7 years. In certain countries, we're talking about decades. That's amazing. So when people take their money and leave, not because, well, some people crap on their countries of origin. Not me. But there's a good amount of people doing that, But if you're just one of those people who just, maybe not because you're crapping on your country of origin, but you just understand how money is working, and you want to be able to take your money and really stretch it properly. Wow. This is why people are a lot less stressed, a lot less anxious, and they all seem to have that, like, I'm beyond chilling now, And that's a beautiful thing, but it takes a lot of guts. It takes a lot of bravery, And if you have a family, if you're married, or if you have kids, and, like, to make a move like that, because if you have the funds and you make a move like that, you're gonna be good. But the shock to do it, and again, the bravery it takes to be able to make a move like that, so that you can experience that kind of freedom as far as like cost of living and how you're able to really be chilling. It takes a lot. But then again, it takes a lot in general with life itself. But that's why no matter what, we have to be laser focused. We have to stay focused, stay motivated, do our best to remain positive, even though life has a way of challenging us, and continue to stay the course. And, we're all trying to figure out, because many of us have the same goals, right? Financial freedom, good health, present ourselves a certain way physically, aesthetically. These are all things that many of us strive for, right? And to be able to do that, because A lot of people have clues in their minds what needs to be done, but not totally sure. I was fortunate myself to experiment a lot because I know a lot of very intelligent people. And much like nutrition, that I took decades to figure out, you'll have a lot of very intelligent people who'll tell you, who'll steer you in various directions and tell you what needs to be done and how it should be done. But when I learned what I learned, because during that whole journey, I had to weed out a lot because it didn't matter how smart a person was. Because you could have very intelligent people who just don't know. You know, it'd be like a doctor, for example, and no disrespect to any physician out there, but like doctors in general, they study like the rest of us, right? It's like a person who goes through college and you'll have like your general electives, and then you'll have like, once you pass like the 60 credits for an associate's, and then, you know, you get all of that knocked out, then you have to like study towards your major, right? Now, this is like an overall general way of learning things. So, but at the same time, it's like that gets you in the door. And then, you know, like, and that's how like everything, the whole system is set up that way. And then you have to go get your experience to be able to get to the next level. And then, but when you think about it, you would think like, oh, that person's a doctor, you know, so that person should know anything I fire at them. Obviously, that's not true, right? And you would think, because there's like this misconception that because they're of this type of ranking in whatever it is, that they're really bright, which you could say they are, but they don't know everything, right? Because that's the misconception, like where people tend to believe that like, oh, they're gonna know everything, like doctor on premises. Like, not every doctor is gonna know what to do in every situation, because it really comes down to the wisdom acquired through experience, right? And that's what the whole point is. Like, you have to actually go through things to learn stuff, which brings me back to my point, which is I met a lot of very intelligent people who would say, this is what you got to do because this is where it's at. And even me, like what I've learned through my, because like I said, I was fortunate to be able to experiment. But when I learned what I learned, what people were telling me I should probably do is not, that wasn't it. You know, I thought it'd be it because collectively that's like what everyone was saying. You know, everyone was like, yeah, this is what you should be doing. But no, it really wasn't. Wow, it's really bright. It looks like it's like, it looks like it's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Meanwhile, it's like 4 a.m. right now. You know, that's nuts. But, and again, I don't think because of my experience, my wisdom acquired through these experiences, that I know everything, or that what I think is the way to do things is exactly how everyone would benefit. No, I'm not saying that. I just learned through experience, which was painful at times, what I know is the path for me. If others were to follow, I genuinely do believe that others would experience success as well. But can I guarantee that? I don't, I don't know. I really don't. Because I can't even guarantee it for myself. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what's going on. But, YouTube is sending me a Q&A sticker right now, right? I try these things a lot. Like, I put these things up. Answers will appear as chat messages. Okay. Okay, how do I move this thing? We'll put it over here. Okay, let's start Q&A. Let's try it. Okay. Well, it just stays there in the middle. Can you see this? It goes right there in the middle. Let me see if I can answer it at least. No, I can't. What is my useless talent? I'll just say what my useless talent is, right? Because I have tons of useless talents. This is a useless talent of mine, right? My jaw dislocates and I can snap it. Want to see? Okay, I'm getting rid of this thing. So that's my spiel on being laser focused. I thought I would jump in today, share some thoughts on what I think is important as far as staying motivated and remaining focused, because it's important, have that laser focus and make sure. Oh shoot, the lights just went off. Now you see it's 4 o'clock in the morning, bright lights just went off. Like all these lights just went off. So yeah, that's really it. I thought I'd stop by or pop in or pop in and check in and speak about this briefly. And I appreciate everyone who did the same. And that's really it. Until next time, it's almost 32 degrees Fahrenheit. That's freezing out here in the Bronx. And the rest of this week is going to be very cold. So if you're on the East Coast and you're out here, make sure you understand it's going to be very, very chilly. So do what you have to do, dress in layers, and until next time, I will, unless anyone has anything to chat about or discuss or say, feel free. Otherwise, I'll be back tomorrow, And yeah, have a great rest of your day.